Yesterday, I spoke to you in hour number 3. If you missed it, get the podcast. I told you about what the Biden administration slipped under the radar on Friday. You are not going to hear anyone in the mainstream media talk about this. But I will tell you, this is probably the most important thing that you can concentrate on right now. If you want to know what the government doesn't want you to know, you can do your own homework and pay attention to what they release on Friday afternoons. The White House, their latest, please don't look into this Friday release, was Biden's climate finance report. Now, I told you yesterday how they're going to begin enforcing the left's radical agenda on people like you and me, and there is no coincidence that Jen Psaki made these comments in the same week.
The president wants to make fundamental change in our economy, and he feels coming out of the pandemic is exactly the time to do that. And if we don't do it now, if we don't address the cost of childcare, to go back to Josh's question earlier, if we don't address the climate crisis, if we don't ensure that universal pre-K is a reality now, we're not going to have the same opportunity to do it for some time.
Okay, forget about the universal K, pre-K, and the child care. That's all red herrings. All red herrings. They just said the quiet part out loud. The president wants to make a fundamental change in our economy, and he feels coming out of the pandemic is exactly the time to do that. Making a change in our economy. Now, that sounds like something that should be addressed from the Oval Office, 8 p.m. on a Wednesday, where we're all together and we're like, oh, okay, he wants to make a change. Let's talk about it. It's interesting because what she just said is the exact language, almost a quote from the people over at the Great Reset, the World Economic Forum. This is the most dangerous movement in the world right now. It is a direct shot by a railgun at liberty. And when I started talking about this year and a half ago, the system went into overdrive to call it a conspiracy.
President-elect Joe Biden is weeks away from taking office, but his presidency already has a growing conspiracy following it. It is called the Great Reset. The theory accuses Mr. Biden of playing a part in a global economic plan that will ultimately lead to a dystopian society. The theory even calls Mr. Biden's campaign slogan, "Build Back Better," a front for the conspiracy.
See, this is how it works. This is how they shut people down. They isolate and alienate you by calling the opposition conspiracy theorists. Everything is a conspiracy. Well, there are some conspiracies out there, but you need to know the difference between conspiracy theory and conspiracy fact. She said, even the president's slogan, "Build Back Better." Well, okay, let's just follow this. Build Back Better. It's not original. It wasn't invented by the Biden campaign staff. It originated at the UN and the Agenda 21 group. Then later, Agenda 21 was changed to Agenda 2030, and they used Build Back Better. It was then picked up and used by the people in Davos and the World Economic Forum as the Great Reset's slogan. So how is it that it's a conspiracy theory that he's using something that came from the UN, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, and then the World Economic Forum's Great Reset, which is part of Agenda 2030 and the UN? That's not a conspiracy theory. That's a conspiracy fact. Build Back Better is just a less spooky way of saying the Great Reset. And the White House's climate finance report on Friday is the first step in applying force to ensure compliance. What they didn't want you looking into, in actuality, is the framework to begin the Great Reset. But what does it mean for you? How will this affect, Glenn? Why and how does this affect me and my family? I have done my homework, and I urge you to do yours. I have a book that is coming out in January. Sorry for the lateness of this book, but it was really hard because every time we put it to bed, something else would come. We can't publish until that's in there. You can order it right now at Amazon.com, and it is called The Great Reset. It is going to affect you. And I urge you to get involved in this because things are going to start happening very rapidly. And the way you do your research is you do not go, everything that I say, check it against the original source. And the original source now is the worldeconomicforum.org or .com, the UN, and now the White House, whitehouse.gov. Everything listed on Biden's report on Friday is taken almost verbatim from the United Nations plan to implement the Paris Accords. And they go into specific detail on how they're going to enforce environmental, social, and governance scores, or ESGs. And they're going to enforce them on the banks and companies. For anyone who is calling this a conspiracy, go to the UN Finance Initiative website and read it for yourself. Nobody's trying to hide this, and it's now at whitehouse.gov. Redesigning our capitalist system and our economy and our society is a four-step process, and here's how the UN outlines it in their report. Stage 1, qualitative analysis. This is when they decided to start placing a woke grade on companies and financial institutions. And I say this was because we're already past stage 1 now. Stage 2, quantitative analysis is going on right now. Social compliance is what they're doing. Social compliance. It has now been graded, and scores are starting to pop up on investment portfolios and annual reports. Social compliance. Stage 3, by the way, masks. Have you complied yet? It's good for society. You're not with social compliance? Stage 3, investment decision. This is where we are now getting to. Money will be diverted from the non-compliant to the compliant. Stage 4, active ownership assessment. The compliant will be monitored. If they fall out of line, they'll be handled via exclusion measures. Those are quotes. The report goes on to list several ESG issues that factor into scoring. They include everything from, does the company just pay minimum wage? Or do they have a strong workforce culture? Or how are they on gender diversity? Just put those standards in the hands of a government looking to change the social contract and imagine who they could go after. Literally anyone they want. Oh, you're not going to $15 an hour even though it's not mandated by the government? Lose some points. Wow, you employ so many white men. Sorry, you're going to lose some more. Oh, and that loan you wanted looks like the bank's not going to be able to approve you now. But just come into compliance with these standards. This isn't a government standard. It's just what the banks are requiring now. The clapback from the left is that this won't affect the average ordinary American. You're seeing what falling out of compliance is doing in cities with just the police force when they say, we're not going to follow your social justice rules. We'll quit. We're not going to follow your mask mandates. We think it's wrong. We quit. It will affect you in more ways than just that. It is such bullcrap. It's such a lie. It's amazing that people are falling for it. What happens to the person that works at a place that now has to fire more workers because the government or the banks are making them pay everyone more than minimum wage? What happens when a person that was fired is now on the streets because they were white or male? If you think anyone will be excluded from this, listen to what will be affected. Again, from their own disclosures. Personal mortgages. Now, that doesn't sound like that's affecting the business. That sounds like that's affecting you. Personal mortgages, commercial real estate, business loans, listed equity, energy finance, and even car loans. Not buying the right car? This is every single aspect of your financial life and your future. Remember, they say by 2030, you will own nothing and you will be happy. That's the key. They don't want you owning a home, owning a car. What they're gearing up to do is eliminate all ownership. Do your own homework. Check them on everything. Read the White House's report they released last Friday, then cross-check that with the documentation from both the UN and the Great Reset at the World Economic Forum. They're nearly identical. They're all moving in lockstep to re-engineer society. It is not a conspiracy theory. Are they taking orders from some cabal in a star chamber in Davos? No. But they all go to Davos. They all are in agreement that an oligarchy, a global oligarchy, with you at the bottom is the way forward. And week by week, just like last week, we are now seeing it all unfold. Step 1, do your own homework. 2, decide now if you will comply. 3, begin to come together as Americans. We must stand together. The only way to fight this is locally. You must get your money out of these banks that are part of the Federal Reserve and put them into local banks. And you need to talk to your local bank. How are they going to survive an ESG score? We need to really build a parallel economy quickly. We need to begin to do business with one another. Remember, ESG will stop you from being a supplier. So you make a widget. You will no longer be able to sell your widget to a company with a higher ESG score, and they won't be able to buy it from you because your score is too low. You're not going to get banking services. You will not get insurance. This will affect everyone who refuses to comply. The mask mandate is not about COVID. The vaccine mandate is not about COVID. They've been flying, we found out last night, they have been flying illegals into our major cities from the border in the middle of the night. They do everything in the cover of darkness. But if it was truly about COVID and the vaccines were about saving people, then why are these illegals not even required to take a COVID test, let alone wear a mask and get both doses before they've been released into the population? Because it's not about COVID. It's not about anybody but you. Comply. As I told you yesterday, their new regulation is comply or explain yourself. And if you can't explain yourself to their satisfaction, you lose. It's well underway. We're late, but we were late to World War II as well. We just have to remember who we are, that we fight and stand for rights of all people, and then just be immovable.